Hi, and you are listening to the Perio Patient Podcast. This is Dr. Ben Young, and this is episode 42. I've been thinking the last few days and talking to some dentists and patients, and the word, in my mind at least, has come up is the word responsibility. It's the kind of a word that I could probably talk about for a long, long time, because it has so much to do with what I have to do every day in terms of treating patients. It has to do with how to help people figure out what they need to do in the world of perio or dentistry or medicine, and then do the things they need to do. It's a very complicated problem, but it is simplified when we begin to think about the idea of responsibility. It kind of goes back to the prayer of God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And that courage to change the things I can is the courage to be responsible for the things that I have to be responsible for. And if you've listened to the 2004 parts, my presentation on periodontal disease and how it works with regards to how patients can manage it, in that I talk about the responsibilities that we have, the patient and I, and the fact that we have different responsibilities, which is kind of a thought that occurred to me long ago about this whole process. One of the most difficult areas of confusion is when two people believe they have the same responsibilities, because it's easy to assume that the other person's going to do the thing they're supposed to do, or we were sharing with them, and it becomes very unclear and things crash and burn easily. So I've always tried to make it a point in my own life to work through and define who is responsible for what. Let's say that you and I are the head of a party. We're going to throw a party for a group, and you and I are co-chairs of the party planning committee. Well, it could be very easy for things to slip through the cracks, like who's bringing the cake and who is providing the entertainment and where are we getting the chairs and who's going to rent the hall, and all of these things have to be decided. Even though we may be co-chairs, we need to divide up these responsibilities. So I'll take some and you take some. Let's be specific, and that way these things will be accomplished, because we know it's on us and there's nobody else that's going to do it if we don't. And that to me is the best way to handle responsibility. When we get to the point of having to get care from others, then there is shared requirements for, say, becoming healthy. I need to do the things I'm supposed to do. And one of my responsibilities, as I say in the 2004 parts, is appointment management. And what that means is I'm responsible for getting the help I need from others who can provide me the things I cannot provide for myself. So I go to an attorney if I need a will written. I go to an eye doctor or an ophthalmologist if I need my eyes checked. I can't do these for myself. I need their expertise. But they can't do it for me if I'm not in their office or making arrangements with them. This is all pretty obvious stuff. The problem, though, in healthcare comes when we get third parties. And the third parties are like insurance companies and others who imply that they're going to cover things, pay for things, but in the fine print, maybe that's not the case. There is a mess in who's responsible for what. And I will tell you that in order to get well, you need to be extremely clear as to what they're going to do and what you're going to do to make sure that you get the care you need. I had a talk the other day, and I think I've mentioned this on another podcast. The individual who has the insurance policy has more leverage with the insurance company than a doctor's office. And there are obvious reasons for this. But one of them is that the insurance company is more likely to respond to the customer and give and take at that level than they will working with a doctor's office, where their fear might be that if they give a little bit, it's going to open them up to other doctors' offices, and all of a sudden they're not protecting their assets, let's say. That's what they're in the business for. It's to make a profit and to provide as little care as they can get away with, because they're not in the business of healthcare. They're in the business of finance. And if a patient is going to use them, then it's important that the patient is responsible for managing the insurance company, clarity, and all of that, because if the insurance company determines they're not going to pay for something, then it falls on the patient to pay for it. They are ultimately responsible. And that doesn't feel good if you're expecting things to turn out a certain way and all of a sudden the game has changed. So I would just tell you that patients do the best in healthcare when they ask questions, and a good question is a question on something they do not know. It doesn't mean that it has to be the cleverest question ever asked. It can be a very simple, basic question. But if you're not sure of it, then by all means ask it. I have said earlier on other podcasts too that I guess I'm getting old to the point where I really don't care if people think one way or another of my intelligence because I'm asking questions. I kind of know that there's this element around pretending that I know something when I don't. That actually turns out to be more harmful to me than if I were just to say honestly, look, I really don't understand what you're talking about there. I'm not clear on your terminology. I think I understand. Let me restate it to you. You tell me if I'm getting this or not. I think those kinds of interactions are really helpful, and they actually help the doctor or the nurse or whoever is speaking and trying to train or talk about aspects of your care. It really helps them to get feedback. And the people who can do this are the ones who are going to get the best care. That to me is the whole element of responsibility, that we can't make assumptions that others are responsible for our health care primarily. They're responsible for providing care, but it all has to do with our cooperation as patients if we're going to get the care we need. And so it's just a very active kind of process, very unlike what the model of medicine has been for generations, which is you're going to somebody who's going to fix the problem. That's not true. You need to go and you need to participate and cooperate with them in order to get the best care that you can. And I think if we're all open and honest like that, and I say to the doctor, okay, what are my responsibilities here? What do you need me to do? That also goes to home care and a bunch of other things, which we're sometimes not very good at. And it's important. One of the responsibilities a patient has is daily home care, whatever that is. I call it plaque control in the tooth that has 4 parts. Probably not the greatest term. Really what I should be saying is daily care. What you have to do on a daily basis. No one is coming to your house or apartment or where you live to do it for you. You have to do it. And those are the things that actually turn out to be the most important things, like what you're eating, how you're exercising, how much rest you're getting. And all of these things, I'll just be real honest with you, I struggle with them too. They're not easy, and we don't always get them perfect, and that isn't the point. The point is, though, we have to continue to be reminding ourselves that what we're doing on a daily basis is really important to the overall health that we can have. And that's just, we're all human and we all need it. Nobody's exempt. So what I often do with these, as I produce these, is I go back over them, I listen to them again, and then this time it occurred to me that I wanted to also bring up an idea that is become very popular in politics and the news, and that is the whole idea of healthcare as a right. And this fits in with the whole idea of responsibility in this way. If healthcare is a right, then you deserve it and somebody has to provide it to you because it's a right. The problem with this mentality is that it exempts the individual who has the health problem from being responsible for themselves within the context of the care. It's going back to this old model of, I have a right for you to fix me, for you to do something for me. And maybe it sounds good, but it doesn't work. It's the same idea that if everybody has a right to something, it's not going to be available to everyone. There is a supply and demand, frankly. There's only so many hospital rooms. There's so many hospitals, so many doctors and nurses, so many dentists. If you open up, everyone in the entire world has a right to health care, you've just swamped the system and no one is going to have any care at all. And what happens in those sorts of situations is it becomes a two-tiered system. Those who are in power have great health care. Those who are in the masses have little to no health care. And whatever they have is just doled out to them because they don't have to pay for it. So it's provided, but what is provided is of really no value. So you can say, oh, I'm getting great health care just like everybody else. The reality is no one's getting any health care at all. And again, I would say that's the wrong model. If you really truly want to be healthy, you have to take charge of your own health care. And I think when you do this, when you look around at other people, you're going to find you're in the minority, because the minority are going to get the best health care because that's what they want and they're pursuing it, whereas others are waiting for it to be doled out or issued to them, and that's never going to happen. And in the meantime, because people, including myself, we don't sometimes maintain ourselves and keep ourselves healthy by eating right and sleeping all the rest, then the deterioration of our health isn't somebody else's fault. And maybe that's the point. We just don't want to admit that a lot of this deterioration of ourselves falls on us. And if we were to do a better job, we would be healthier. The good news on that, though, is every day is a new one, and you can start over and just start working towards having a healthier life. And it can be very simple at first, very simple, to just starting with a few changes and continue to pursue it. But I wanted to bring that up before closing. Healthcare and rights. You have a right to life. You have a right to pursue happiness. Healthcare is a silly idea if you think of it as a right. That's what I've got. Alrighty, have a good day. Thanks a lot. Bye. I did a theatrical performance about puns. It was a play on words.